If we can please ask everyone to reassemble, please. Okay, thank you. We will now resume the meeting, and I will ask the IT team to share the feedback form for our first presidential candidate. What we will do is I will give a brief overview of what AI produced. This is a combination of the 3 questions that were asked of each candidate as it relates to, you'll see those questions in here. And then secondly, based on the feedback analysis, we also asked, the prompt included comparing that to the position criteria that this board approved. So very quickly, we'll go through in alphabetical order and in the same order in which each finalist visited campus. Dr. Rondell Allen, there were a total of 112 responses, and you can see the composition there. And if you could scroll down, I will read the summary, overall summary. Across all groups, the candidate is recognized for his strong institutional ties, leadership quality, and vision for FAMU's future. Alumni are the most supportive, emphasizing his legacy and potential to bring positive change. Faculty are cautiously optimistic, balancing his strengths with concerns about experience. Students are more critical, focusing on engagement and preparedness. Overall tone. The general sentiment is positive, especially among alumni and faculty, but tempered by clear concerns about experience and readiness. Student skepticism lowers the overall tone to cautiously positive. The next section is feedback summary by role. We will be skipping that for time, but you can certainly peruse that information. And if the IT team can move down to summary of question 1, I will just be reading the top lines that you see in bold. The first question is, what are the candidates' strengths? Deep connection to FAMU and HBCU mission, academic and administrative experience, professionalism and integrity, communication and relationship building, student-centered focus, vision and innovation. As you can see, the feedback in question 1 paints a picture of a candidate who is deeply connected to FAMU, experienced in academic administration, and committed to professionalism, communication, and student success. The responses also highlight his vision for the future and his ability to innovate while emphasizing the importance of integrity and relationship building leadership style. Question 2, what concerns, if any, do you have about the candidate in this role? Lack of presidential and large-scale leadership experience, financial management and fundraising, political and external relations, communication and responsiveness, institutional fit and understanding, accountability and decision-making. As you can see, the concerns in question 2 reflect a desire for a candidate with proven executive experience, strong financial and political acumen, and the ability to communicate a clear, bold vision for FAMU. The feedback also highlights the importance of institutional fit, accountability, and responsiveness to stakeholder needs. Question 3, what other observations or comments do you wish to share about this candidate? Readiness and suitability for the presidency, vision, communication, and engagement, political and external relations, financial management and fundraising, institutional fit and understanding, accountability, decision-making, and team building. Thank you. I was scrolling too fast. As we move through these responses, it's clear that the FAMU community is looking for a president who combines executive experience, visionary leadership, political acumen, and a deep understanding of the university's unique culture. The feedback in question 3 underscores both the candidate's potential and significant gaps that must be addressed for success in this critical role. Finally, the next set of analysis was based on the following objectives. How does the feedback and overall responses deliver against the objectives, and what are the gaps? I'm not going to go through this in detail, but we will skip to the bottom, excuse me, and read the final summary. And this is where it was, the feedback was summarized based on the position criteria. The feedback suggests that while the candidate meets basic qualifications, there are substantial gaps between their current experience level and the requirements of the position, particularly in areas of executive leadership, financial management, and external relations. That concludes the high-level feedback for finalist Allen. Next, we will move to the high-level feedback for finalist Hector. There were 137 respondents, as you can see, nearly half from alumni. I will read the overall summary. The candidate received mixed feedback across university stakeholder groups. His strong financial background and visionary leadership qualities were consistently praised, particularly by alumni and staff. His experience across multiple higher education institutions and knowledge of university operations were seen as valuable assets. However, several concerns emerged, primarily from faculty, regarding his lack of a terminal degree and questions about the transition from CFO to president. Students and some staff expressed interest in his financial expertise while questioning his readiness for broader leadership responsibilities beyond financial management. The candidate's ability to communicate effectively and his understanding of university operations were noted as positives, though his experience leading a land-grant institution was questioned. Overall tone. The collective tone of the responses leans cautiously positive, with notable variations among groups. Alumni and those in the other category were enthusiastically supportive, while staff maintained a positive but measured outlook. Student responses reflected a neutral stance, and faculty feedback skewed toward neutral to negative. Despite the concerns raised about academic credentials and leadership breadth, there is a general sense of optimism about the candidate's potential to address the university's financial and operational challenges, though tempered by questions about his readiness for the full scope of presidential responsibilities. We will again skip to the next section. Let me go there. Okay. Question 1, what are the candidate's strengths? Lack of terminal degree and academic credentials, limited experience as a university president or leader, overemphasis on financial background, fit for the institution and its culture, concerns about academic leadership and vision, general reservations and alternative suggestions. We're going to skip. Are we? I believe that may have, that summary question may have been tied to the question number 2 and not strengths. The next one, what concerns, if any, do you have about the candidate in this role? Academic qualifications and scholarly leadership, transition from financial to presidential leadership, HBCU experience and cultural understanding, student success and development, community and external relations, administrative and operational leadership, strategic vision and innovation, faculty and staff development, institutional growth and development, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This analysis reveals that while some respondents expressed no concerns, Those who did raise issues focused on a broad range of leadership aspects beyond financial management. The concerns reflect the complex nature of university leadership and the high expectations stakeholders have for a presidential candidate at an R2 HBCU institution. And looking at these questions, regardless of what the question was in the feedback survey, this is what the summary was. So I do think that it was appropriately captured. Question 3, what other observations or comments do you wish to share about this candidate? Suitability for the presidential role, communication and public presence, understanding of university culture and mission, readiness for immediate challenges, stakeholder engagement and relationship building, long-term vision and institutional advancement. As we can see, the feedback in question 3 reflects a wide range of thoughtful concerns and expectations. Respondents are looking for a leader who not only brings financial expertise, but also demonstrates comprehensive leadership, cultural understanding, strong communication, and a compelling vision for the university's future. Before we go to the final summary at the bottom, can we go back to question 1? I don't believe that I read the summary for question 1. I want to be consistent in everything that we do, if there was a summary there. Okay. As we can see, the concerns raised in question 1 are wide-ranging and reflect deep consideration of the candidate's fit for the presidency. The feedback highlights both specific qualifications and broader issues of leadership, vision, and institutional culture. And now we can go to the very bottom that summarizes the alignment with the position criteria. Summary conclusion. While the candidate brings exceptional strength in financial management and operations, the critical gaps in academic leadership and significant gaps in external relations present substantial risks to successful leadership of the institution. The absence of a terminal degree, combined with limited experience in key presidential responsibilities beyond finance, suggests a meaningful misalignment with the comprehensive requirements of the role. These gaps would require significant support structures and rapid development to mitigate institutional risk. We will now move to the third candidate and finalist. Marva Johnson, JD. There were 802 responses, with 74% represented by alumni, the largest composition of feedback. Overall summary, the feedback from all user roles, alumni, students, faculty, staff, community members, and others, reveals a clear and consistent pattern in the evaluation of the presidential candidate. Respondents frequently acknowledge the candidate's strengths in business, legal, and community leadership, as well as her strategic vision and ability to build partnerships. However, these positive attributes are consistently overshadowed by widespread concern about her lack of higher education leadership experience, limited familiarity with FAMU's unique culture and mission, and strong political affiliations. Many respondents also question her preparedness, depth of understanding, and authenticity, expressing fears that her leadership could jeopardize the university's legacy and values. Overall tone. The overall tone of the responses is overwhelmingly negative and critical. Across all groups, there is a strong sense of skepticism, disappointment, and even urgency to protect FAMU's traditions and future. While a minority of responses recognize the candidate's professional accomplishments and potential for external engagement, the dominant sentiment is one of distrust and opposition, with many expressing that the candidate does not align with the university's needs or the expectations of its diverse stakeholders. Question 1, what are the candidate's strengths? Business and professional experience, political and community connections, leadership and personal qualities, vision and innovation, resource development potential, professional credentials. This analysis shows that while there are significant concerns about the candidate's fit for the role, there are also recognized strengths, particularly in areas of external engagement, business acumen, and professional leadership. However, it's worth noting that many responses indicated none or limited when asked about strengths, and the positive attributes mentioned were often qualified with concerns about their relevance to higher education leadership. The strengths identified tend to cluster around external facing capabilities, such as business, politics, community engagement, rather than internal academic leadership qualities, which aligns with the concerns raised about higher education. Question 2, what concerns, if any, do you have about the candidate in this role? Lack of higher education experience. Disconnect from FAMU's culture and mission. Political affiliations and external influence. Lack of transparency, preparation, and authenticity. Insufficient support from key stakeholders. Uncertainty about ability to address critical issues. This summary reflects the most prominent and recurring concerns voiced by the FAMU community and stakeholders in question 2 of the survey. Question 3, what other observations or comments do you wish to share about this candidate? Interview performance and communication. Cultural fit and understanding. Stakeholder reception. Readiness and preparation. Political context and concerns. Impact on FAMU's future. The comments in this section revealed deeper, more personal concerns than the structured questions about strengths and concerns. Many respondents used this space to express stronger emotional investment in the selection process, share detailed observations about the broader implications for FAMU's future, highlight specific incidents or responses that raised red flags, emphasize the historical significance of this leadership decision, call for greater consideration of FAMU's unique needs and mission. The overall tone in this section was notably more direct and passionate, with respondents often using this space to make final, emphatic statements about their position on the candidacy. The responses frequently went beyond professional critique to address fundamental concerns about FAMU's future direction and institutional integrity. And based on the position criteria, as the analysis shows, while the candidate's strength in business, legal affairs, and external relations align with some aspects of the role, there are critical and significant gaps in higher education leadership, academic administration, compliance, and internal community engagement. These gaps are repeatedly highlighted in the feedback and are seen as fundamental to the successful fulfillment of the university presidency. The lack of direct experience in academic settings, especially at a research university and HBCU, is viewed as a critical barrier to meeting the essential duties and responsibilities outlined for the position. The last finalist that we will review, Dr. Donald Palm. There were 200 total responses, again, with alumni representing nearly half at 45% of respondents. Overall summary, the feedback collected from various user roles, including faculty, administrators, staff, alumni, and board members, paints a comprehensive picture of the institution's current environment. Across the board, respondents highlighted notable strengths such as strong teaching and student engagement, effective leadership, reliable teamwork, program development, and visionary guidance. At the same time, several concerns emerged, including the need for improved research output, better communication, limited career advancement, funding challenges, and financial sustainability. Each group brought its own perspective, emphasizing both the positive aspects of their experience and the areas where they see room for growth. Overall tone. Overall, the tone of the responses is constructive and leans toward the positive. While there are clear concerns and challenges identified by each group, the feedback is generally forward-looking and solution-oriented. Respondents express pride in their roles and a commitment to the institution's mission, even as they acknowledge the hurdles that need to be addressed. This balanced feedback suggests a healthy organizational culture that values both celebration of achievements and honest reflection on areas for improvement. Question 1, what are the candidate's strengths? Teaching excellence and student engagement, leadership and strategic vision, collaboration and teamwork, community engagement and outreach, program development and innovation, supportive and positive work environment. As we can see, the strengths identified in question 1 reflect a vibrant, collaborative, and forward-looking institution. The consistent emphasis on teaching excellence, leadership, teamwork, community engagement, program innovation, and a supportive environment demonstrates the strong foundation for continued success and growth. Question 2, what concerns, if any, do you have about the candidate in this role? Research output and academic performance, communication and information flow, career advancement and professional development, financial and resource challenges, institutional growth and strategic direction, engagement and collaboration. As we can see, the responses in question 2 reveal a thoughtful and nuanced set of concerns that span research, communication, career development, finances, strategy, and collaboration. These themes highlight both the complexity of the institution's environment and the commitment of its stakeholders to continuous improvement. Question 3, what other observations or comments do you wish to share about this candidate? Collaboration and institutional culture, communication and transparency, resource allocation and financial stability, professional development and advancement, external engagement and reputation, change management and strategic direction. As we can see, the observations and comments in question 3 provide a rich tapestry of feedback, highlighting both the strengths and the challenges facing the institution. These insights underscore the importance of fostering a collaborative culture, improving communication and transparency, ensuring fair resource allocation, supporting professional development, strengthening external engagement, and managing change effectively. Addressing these concerns will be key to sustaining a positive and forward-looking environment for all stakeholders. And the final summary. As we move through each objective, it's clear that the university's leadership is perceived as strong in vision, collaboration, and community engagement. However, there are notable gaps in research productivity, fundraising, external partnerships, and professional development. Some of these gaps, such as those related to research output and advancement opportunities, are significant and could impact the university's ability to reach its strategic goals if not addressed. Others, like the lack of explicit feedback on compliance or specific qualifications, are less critical and may simply reflect the scope of the feedback rather than actual deficiencies. Overall, the feedback suggests a solid foundation with areas for targeted improvement, particularly in performance metrics, resource development, and staff advancement. Addressing these significant gaps will be essential for fully realizing the objectives outlined for university leadership. So thank you again to Mr. Spates for summarizing hundreds of comments from stakeholders across various groups. Now we will begin our discussion of the finalists. I was reflecting on our work this morning, and as I came in and thinking about the fact that our responsibility as trustees is a great privilege as well as a solemn duty, because we are the stewards of the legacy of the nation's top ranked public historically Black college or university, a legacy that's been built through resilience and excellence and the unwavering belief in the power of education to transform lives. I know you share those beliefs as volunteers and volunteer leaders who serve on this board. I ask each of you that as we get ready to discuss the candidates and ultimately vote, as fellow guardians of the institution, to please vote with the full weight of responsibility that we have in mind, considering deeply the leadership vision and strength required to sustain and elevate FAMU's mission and to inspire confidence across our community, from students to faculty to alumni to donors to parents, and of course, the citizens of Florida and the United States. We will begin by opening the floor to provide each trustee an opportunity to share their thoughts and advocate for your positions on who should be the next president of Florida A&M University. During this discussion period, we are not voting or tallying preferences. This discussion is not an elimination period. This is a time that everyone will have an opportunity to speak on their position and for everyone to carefully listen to the thoughts of our colleagues. Everyone will have the chance to be heard and heard again as needed. After that discussion is complete, we will take a roll call ballot for each roll call ballot vote on each board member's preference for president. Trustees, the floor is now open for discussion. Trustee Perry, you're recognized.
Good morning to the Rattler Nation. My name is Belvin Perry Jr. I was born in Orlando, Florida, 1949. I was raised in a totally different era. Throughout my life, I think about the following. Never worry about who will be offended if you speak the truth. Worry about who will be misled, deceived, destroyed if you don't. Ernie Ellison simply asked a question and made a motion that we pause to try to clear up rumors that were out there. I was the one who said, before he made this motion, we need to clear this up because it's unfair to all of the candidates unless this is cleared up. The board voted not to, which is the will of the entire body. Mysteriously, after that particular vote, Mr. Ellison was removed. Mysteriously, when I was confirmed, my term ends January the 6th, 2026. Let me make it abundantly clear. With my contacts with the governor's office, through his deputy chief of counsel, nobody has ever tried to put any pressure on me. We discuss issues. We discuss the pros and cons of each candidate. I am very concerned that silence, when someone only seeks to answer questions for clarification, is casting a cloud on this process. When I went through the analysis I looked at support from everyone. I looked at academic leadership. I looked at administrative experience. I looked at fundraising. I looked at budgeting. You cannot overlook the strong alumni in their voice. You cannot overlook the students in their voice, particularly so when they are based on reasons, based upon solid facts. It has often been said that you can never be a true leader if others aren't willing to follow you. It is a foregone conclusion as the result of this vote today. That's the truth. There are indicators that should have been cleared up. When Larry Robertson left here, he was making $561,000 or $567,000 and change. A man who led this institution to greater heights. But now our salary range now goes up to $750,000. I will cast my vote today, not because I like or dislike anyone, but I will cast my vote looking at the criteria that I've seen here today for the best candidate to lead FAMU, the best candidate who would follow the law. For those of you who know me and for those of you who don't know me, I've never been some wide-eyed liberal. I spent 12 years as an assistant state attorney, ending as chief assistant state attorney. Despite the fact of growing up in the hood, I followed the law. I prosecuted the worst of the worst in Orange County, sought and obtained the death penalty. As a judge, I fulfilled my duties and followed the law and sentenced 8 people to die. And some of them have died. That was not a popular decision in the hood, but I followed the law. I will do that today. And as I enter the sunset set of my public service, I will vote along the lines that I've indicated. While I am not a graduate of Florida A&M University, I'm a life member of the FAMU Alumni Association. Everyone is entitled to their opinions, and I respect those opinions. But I will be guided by facts applied to each and every candidate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Perry. I do want to clarify something. Can you clarify what your original term was and if there has been a change?
My term expired in 2021. I reapplied, and I was in that area of limbo. Then I was reappointed by the governor's office, Governor DeSantis. And when I received my confirmation from the Senate, it said my term ran from November of 24 and will end January the 6th of 2026. I received that after we had our last meeting.
And typical terms are how long?
I thought they were 4 years, but that's not the issue.
Okay, I just wondered.
Yeah, the issue is who is the best person to continue the tremendous legacy of FAMU. And as I said before, and I just want to make it abundantly clear, while I question what's been going on with the BOG, nobody from the governor's office tried to put any pressure on me. We talked about pros and cons of each candidate. And I assured everyone that I would think about it and that I would pray. I woke up at 2:30 this morning and I reread some of the things that were in the summaries and the things that had been sent out, because as you know, we just got a lot of this information yesterday afternoon. So those are my comments. And thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to the rest of the members of the board.
Thank you, Trustee Perry. Are there any additional comments? Trustee Bryant, you're recognized.
Thank you. As a trustee who was chosen by the student body, supported by the alumni, taught and shaped by professors, faculty, and staff, and constantly receiving messages from aspirant potential rattlers. As a president who has made history on this campus, I'm a proud part of FAMU history, and I understand legacy and the importance of my position. The students have spoken. The alumni have spoken. Faculty and staff have spoken. History has its eyes on us, and I would be remiss if I were to take my position in vain and not vote to be the voice that has chosen me to be their voice. Out of the selection pool that we have seen this past week, I am unimpressed, and I am concerned gravely at the choices that were supposed to be the top picks for our beloved university. I'll take this time to show my support for candidate Dr. Donald Palm, because he is the only candidate out of all of my conversations and deliberations with students that I never had to question who his priority is. And as members of this board of trustees, people in leadership and people who care about education at its highest, I think it's important that we always understand that the reason why we are here, that the people who put money in our pockets, that the reason that we have any significance or influence in these chairs right now are the students. So understanding that that had to be a question is absolutely unacceptable. I won't speak on a specific candidate, but the amount of disrespect and disregard that I've seen this week from candidates was astonishing. And I hope to never see that or choose that for my beloved campus. Those are my final remarks.
Are there additional comments at this time? Trustee Brown. Trustee Brown, you're recognized, followed by Trustee Washington.
I lower my hand, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. Would you please repeat yourself?
I said I lowered my hand.
Okay, Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. I want to extend my gratitude to the search committee and all those who have been involved over the duration of this process. This is not an easy process. Chair Harper, I appreciate you compiling the results. And what I will take away from those results is there was no one perfect candidate. What I heard from folks is they would like, basically a FAMU alum with a terminal degree who has been at the institution or has links to the institution over the last, hopefully generations. And I would hope that if that person was out there, he or she would have applied and would have made it to where we are right now. I think it's easy to get caught up in the hype and fanfare. It's much harder to stay quiet and do the due diligence required to make a prudent decision. So I'm just going to provide a few points and provide context for my decision this morning. The landscape of higher education is changing. And with that, the role of the president. A recent survey of sitting presidents conducted by the American Council of Education, which is a group of higher education leaders across the country, the number one task that presidents spend their time on is finance and financial management, followed by fundraising. Academic programs was fifth on the list. I respect the viewpoints expressed, but respectively, and as proven by data, the skill sets and strategies that we have used to get here may not be the same strategies that will take to move us forward. And I'm excited for new leadership who is going to be capable of navigating these complex challenges. I remember when performance funding was first implemented. Believe it or not, I actually worked in the governor's office when those first 3 metrics were compiled and spent a lot of time advocating to change it, to expand it to 10, because the first 3, which were the cost to educate a student, the graduation rate of our students, 4-year, and the amount of money those individuals made after they graduate, actually detrimentally impacted families. This is before I had any connection to the university. And so I will say, there are people who talk about performance funding, and I need people to understand that the impetus behind performance funding is no gotcha to this institution. The impetus behind the additional funding that this institution gets is this. There is a set of metrics that state that students should graduate on time with minimal debt in areas and programs where they will earn a sustainable wage. And if you are able to do that, says the state of Florida, you will get additional funding, not your base funding, additional funding. People advocate against the model and say that this is detrimental to our students because they have a different profile. I reject that wholeheartedly. Our students are a 5 out of 5. They're a 10 out of 10. Whatever caliber, whatever scale and rating you want to put them on, they're at the top. So when performance funding was implemented, and scale back to 2011, and the 10 years preceding that, you want to know what FAMU's 4-year graduation rate was? It never exceeded 15%. So for every 10 students that we admitted, only 1.5 of them graduated in 4 years. And now, this year, we have our highest 4-year graduation rate metric we've ever had at 35%. Obviously, there's still room for improvement. Our 6-year graduation rate, because people proclaim that our students, sometimes it takes a little more, was 41%. So that means only 4 out of 10 students graduated in 6 years at our illustrious institution. And now, 10 years later, 14 years later, we're at 51%, which is actually down from the last 3 years, where we were at 59%. This year, we celebrate our highest performing performance funding score ever, 83. And the additional, not base, the additional state funding that this institution will receive is more than the combined annual giving this year. Some of those same people who argued against performance funding stood on stage with balloons and music, celebrating a transformational gift to this university. I had no knowledge of that gift. But when I did my due diligence and sat with members of the team who garnered the gift within 48 hours, they belittled and derided me for asking questions. And here we are. I don't think anybody who's sitting around the table who was here a year ago would have imagined that we're here. And yet we are. So all that is to say, I do listen, and I know that change is hard. But what I want everybody to understand is that I've done my homework, and I will make an informed decision today. You may or may not agree with that, but I will do and have done the best I can to protect Florida A&M University.
Thank you, Trustee Washington. Trustee Brown, I do see your hand. Is that intentional or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're recognized.
Okay. Rattlers, especially to the faculty and staff, I have a statement that I'm going to read. Good morning, colleagues. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge something that matters deeply to me. I know that many of you are frustrated. Some of you are disappointed. Some of you are angry. I hear you. I share your commitment to FAMU. And while the decision I'm going to explain may not be popular, I believe it's necessary. For decades, FAMU faculty and staff have worked harder and been paid less than our peers across Florida. You've carried heavier teaching loads, often without the proper research support or clear career paths as SUS counterparts. Yet you've educated and inspired students to reach new heights. That's what I fought and will continue to fight to make sure that our voices are heard when it comes to what we need, not just to simply survive, but to thrive. Over the past 2 weeks, many have reached out to me, but very few, if any, have asked what FAMU needs to survive in Florida's current funding model. I've read the messages, I've heard the criticisms, and I understand the emotion. But what drives the decisions that affect our future is strategy. I've heard the argument that candidate Marva Johnson has no educational experience. To me, that's not factually accurate. As the chair of the State Board of Education, she worked directly on the accountability systems that govern K-12 and Florida college system institutions. That includes performance-based funding metric and legislative engagements, the very same systems that shape funding for FAMU. Dismissing her qualifications because she isn't a classroom educator ignores the role that she's played in shaping education policy for Florida. By that same logic, wouldn't we have to question the legitimacy of the Florida Board of Governors, who also govern our higher education system and don't have traditional academic backgrounds? Would you say that the Board of Governors members or that the chancellor that oversee FAMU have no education experience? Would you say that the chair of the Board of Governors, who has chaired meetings, reviewed reports from schools across the state, oversees the state budget, advocates for funds, drives performance-based funding numbers, and works with university presidents, doesn't have educational experience and isn't qualified to lead a school? If so, I would objectively disagree with you. And we have to survive in Florida. This moment calls for someone who understands the systems that fund and govern us, because right now, our survival depends on how we navigate those systems. We cannot depend solely on alumni giving to meet our needs. The reality is that most of our funding comes from the Florida Board of Governors and the state legislature. If we're not aligned with that system, if we don't have leadership that can operate within it, we fall further behind. We're already dealing with the consequence of underfunding. Salaries benchmarked against less rigorous institutions, FAMU DRS not being a part of our pay systems, decline in trust because of a lack of inclusions in key decision, morale, recruitment, and retention issues. And let's be honest, long financial aid lines and slow response times aren't just an indication of a bad system, they're also a sign of staff shortages and low pay for university employees. As Faculty Senate President, I base my decision on who I believe can deliver the strategic priorities that we, the employees, created together. Let me remind you of those priorities. 1, equity and employment standards across the SUS. 2, establishment of defined career pathways. 3, timely resolution, protection from harm, and escalation in employee grievances. 4, establishing shared governance and inclusive feedback. 5, fostering innovation, industry partnerships, and research commercialization. 6, professional development, AI integration, and advancement opportunities. 7, development of an academic advising career ladder. 8, enhancing faculty and staff support processes and graduate student assistance. 9, strategic planning for R1 for faculty, staff, and student readiness. And 10, strategic reinvestment and accountability for FAMU DRS. These are not just ideas, these are needs that require leadership with access, relationships, and political experience to secure resources and accountability. I did not take a vote for the general faculty and staff, not out of disrespect, but because I already know what most of you have been saying for years. You've said you don't feel included in the performance-based funding model. You said that we're not ready to go R1. You've said that our graduate students don't have enough support. You said that we need more training and that we need more resources to do our jobs. None of that changes unless we are funded to complete. I understand that many of you may not agree with my decision, but I ask you to reflect on this. What helps us to survive? What helps us to grow? What gives us the best chance at equity, stability, and progress? If we want to win, we must compete. And to compete, we need strategy, we need funding, and we need leadership that can deliver both. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lawson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. I'll try to be brief. A lot of great words and smart folks have spoken before me. I listen to Judge Perry all the time. Hey, team, we have a consequential decision in front of us. We have a decision that is going to shape the future trajectory of this institution. I reflect back on several years ago when we struggled as an institution to galvanize around the performance-based funding model. And there was an individual named Larry Robinson that was able to galvanize the leadership team around the model. Consequently, we are advancing, we are receiving the resources attached to the model, and we are on track to have our high single score in the performance-based funding model. That, by the way, is also driving our ascension into the top 100. It's keeping us the #1 public HBCU, and it's making us an even better investment of state funds, which, by the way, between state funds and large corporate donations are the livelihood of this institution, and approximately, my math may be a little wrong, but let's say 93% of our total funding pool. But with that being said, I do hear and appreciate the voices of the alumni, students, and faculty. And I think we all have to put all of that into our own personal rubrics and come across with the decision that's going to propel us into the future. Stayed up last night almost all night, not watching ESPN, but reviewing the videos of the candidates, particularly the candidates at the public forum, to get a sense for how they were received, how their messages were articulated. And the thing that I kind of came back to was a small book that many of you probably read, What Got Us Here Today Won't Get Us There Tomorrow. And I think that we have to choose a bold leader that is prepared to work with this board, with faculty, with students, with alums, with external supporters to propel us into the future. Madam Chair, those are my comments.
Thank you. Vice Chair Gibbons, followed by Trustee White. No, you can go.
Thank you for the time, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank the selection committee. It's a committee that I worked on for more than 6 months with a group of individuals who were great. A lot of spirited debate, a lot of opinions and ideas that came across very clearly. As late as this week, we worked together on certain things. It is very apparent that this process has been a very arduous task for us to work all together and figure out who's the next leader of this fine university. But it also is very apparent that people have tried to weaponize certain things against the committee, myself, and so many others. And it's okay. Because when I wake up in the morning, every morning, and I get on my knees and I say my prayers, the one thing that I recognize is there's a lady named Essie Smith who was born up in Donaldsonville, Georgia, but ended up raising the rest of us in Cairo, Georgia, in Grady County, just 35 miles from here. And I spent every summer there picking okra with my great-grandparents. One thing they always taught me is to be humble and work hard. I want to thank that committee for being humble and working hard, giving their true opinions about what was going on and what we did. I will stand on the work that we did with anybody or anything. There's a lot of innuendo, rumor, and conjecture. Things that just were absolutely false. I mean, every meeting was recorded. Every meeting had legal counsel, not only from this university, but other lawyers that are in the room, people who represent large groups from across the country. When I start to think about this process, as I said, when I get on my knees in the morning, I remember the things that Essie May taught. Hard work, and people watch out for the people that look like us. I don't mind getting into a debate with anybody. Alan Levine, I know many of you don't care for him or don't like him or think he's good or bad. I've known him since undergraduate. We've been in a lot of battles against each other. But at the core of his beliefs, I've never believed that his intention is to hurt FAMU. And I say that because nobody, black, white, blue, or brown, has come to me and used politics. Some have used politics, but nobody in the political arena has come to me and talked to me about politics related to this issue. And so I will tell you, when I do my rubric, and when I did my rubric, I stayed up all night like Lawson, some other folks I know. I stayed up all night and I pondered over what is good for the university moving forward. It's ironic that we sit here and we talk about the pay scale being moved to 750 when the search firm and the report actually said to line up with the counterparts in the SUS, we should be over $1 million. And that Alan Levine, the same person who sometimes is villainized as related to this particular university, was sitting there arguing to make sure that the university president here at Florida A&M was equally funded with the University of Florida, FAU, and all the other presidents in the SUS. It's ironic that we point fingers when we want to and say, well, that's wrong. But we don't point out that that's right because we pay for what we get for. We pay for what we get. I don't ever want to be undervalued. And so in that report, it clearly states and outlines that the counterparts to this university's president get paid more. So I will stand on that report. I stand on the fact that whoever is the president should be equally paid along the lines of the rest of the university system. And then finally, we need a leader who's going to be transformational and move through the process of moving us to R1 Number one, being able to raise money. When I look at the overall university budget and the financial health, Gerald Hector sat here and said it himself, that the financial health of the organization is sick. I asked another candidate, he said it was great. Which one is it? 6% of the alumni are givers. Unfortunately, the rest of the money comes from the state. That's unfortunate. It really is. Because we should do better in giving. We should do better in fundraising. We, meaning us Rattlers. Not pointing fingers at other people about nonsense that doesn't matter and trying to attack people's integrity and impugn them. So I'll just say, when I did my rubric, I narrowed it down. There's only 2 people that I think move the university forward, and I'm going to vote that way today. If I'm forced to make a 1 vote, I'm pretty sure that I know where I'll go with that 1 vote. But I will tell you, we really need to do a self-assessment, each one of us, and not attack each other, and learn how to work together to move this university forward. These performance measures are clear. And nobody, I say this to people all the time. I became a Rattler later in life. But when I did go to the University of Florida, I was always envious of FAMU. They had the best pharmacy school. I talk to people all the time, my friends that live in St. Petersburg. I know 5 or 6 white pharmacists that came here because it was the best in the country. Had nothing to do with anything else, but this place was the best. SBI was the best in the country. Harvard sought SBI out to know what to do. That's what I want for here. And I want to get back there, build on our rich excellence and brand that we already have. So I am thankful for the process. I'm glad the process went the way it went. I don't mind being attacked about the process. I don't mind being asked about the process of how we got here. But I do know this, that going forward, we're going to need somebody who can not only raise money, somebody who's going to have to take in mind that our students are our #1 customer and constituent. And then thirdly and finally, that we don't get there without the best and brightest faculty and well-paid faculty moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gibbons. Trustee White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to open up by, saying I've heard everybody. I'm a 3rd generation FAMU grad, graduated in 2013, School of Business. I recall when I was asked by Congressman Al Lawson to join the board, and I told him no 3 times. Because one thing I know about leadership is, especially at this board, it's a thankless job. There's a lot of different considerations that need to be considered. Since I've gotten on board, one of the things I've always harped on, especially as a CPA, was the financial management of the school. I remember when I studied abroad in fall 2012 in Shanghai, China. And when I got there, every one of my counterparts who came from various schools, even Morehouse, they had got their financial aid a week before they left to go to Shanghai. So they got their financial aid mid-August. I received mine the week before Thanksgiving. I remember my parents tirelessly having to send me $100 every week through Western Union, me having to go walk to the bank, not knowing Mandarin, trying to figure out where the heck am I going around the city, but trying to pull out $100 a week so I can be able to live. My mother went to Florida A&M. She's a proud graduate. She graduated in the 70s. Her aunt went to Florida A&M in the early 60s. I say this and I continuously say this. They all had financial aid issues. They all had issues getting paid out. We are striving to go to our next mountain. I don't believe you can go to one mountain without conquering one first. We are still fighting these issues that have plagued us for generations. And the other issue we have is nobody wants to say anything about it. Yes, I've seen the 13,000 people who signed the signatures about this search. And I thank you for it. I thank you all for getting involved. And also, I do believe whatever that young student, Elijah Hooks, if he was pressured by the school, that should definitely be investigated, because nobody should be getting involved with anything with stopping any of these students or anybody from protesting. That's what makes us as a school great. We have financial issues. I just also, as the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, I've also been informed that we have some internal issues that we have been plagued with for decades at this point. Our flagship programs, pharmacy. When I went to Florida A&M, I believe it was about 180 students coming in each class. I believe the last class was 55 students. Pharmacy. Vice Chair Gibbons just said pharmacy was one of our flagship programs. I asked the administration, I said, hey, with the decline in enrollment, how many professors have we let go? Or how have we recalibrated the teachers that we have if this program is declining? No words. No budgets being balanced. No ROI being assessed. Bragg Stadium. I love FAMU athletics. I've even when I was at school, enjoyed hearing the band, seeing our illustrious football team play. And even when I was 5 years old out there selling candy apples with my father at the stadium, nothing has changed about the stadium. Not one thing. Not one thing. And we keep trying to just put a little money in to fix it up. We need a new stadium. One thing I really enjoyed during public comment was, and I don't know the young lady's name. She mentioned in 1997, FAMU was ranked #1 by Princeton and Time Magazine. Hence why we have the eternal flame in the middle of our campus that will continuously burn. I struggle seeing that monument. And the reason why I struggle is I look at FAMU like the Lakers. When you go into the stadium, which used to be called the Staples Stadium, you see championship banners. You don't see division banners. While I love and I support all of our HBCUs, now we run around with the title of we're the #1 public HBCU. Not even the #1 HBCU, the #1 public HBCU. When 30 years ago, we were revered as the #1 school in the nation. Where have we lost our way? Alumni giving, as Vice Chair Gibbons said, I've been getting emails. People have been reaching out to me, threatening my company, who also is co-founded by a Rattler who I met at SBI, saying all kind of nonsense. Over the last 3 years, we've given $250,000 and are now looking at doing another pledge of $1 million. When I call different alumni who I know and I love and support, when I'm asking for their support, one of the first things they ask me is, what is FAMU doing with the money? Where is the transparency? And I know our team is working hard at the foundation. However, I still don't even know what scholarships were given out with the funds that we made, that we've contributed. And so at this point, we have to look around the room and we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do to move this school forward? We must bring somebody in who understands financial management. We must bring somebody in who's going to be able to raise funds. And we must bring somebody in who's going to really put us on the path to really think strategically about what we're doing with our funds. I am I hear it all the time about the Humphrey days, President Humphreys. That's the goal that I have for FAMU. I want to put up another eternal flame at the school. But the only way we're going to do that is by looking around the room and having a hard discussion on what do we need to do to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional comments at this time? Trustee Reed, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. And apologies for being delayed. This is a great day for me. My son is graduating from high school this weekend and really excited about the opportunity. So I'm between this event and his event, but this is so important that I really felt it was necessary for me to make sure I gave this the considerable amount of time from a decision-making standpoint. Maybe first, I would like to thank, as was mentioned before, the Presidential Search Committee for their commitment, time, and bringing us a set of candidates that we could review as a board to make a final decision that becomes a recommendation to the Board of Governors of our selection. And I appreciate their work. I know it wasn't easy, but thank them for bringing us a slate of candidates. I also want to thank you, Chair, for the way that you've managed this process over the last week and what you've been able to allow us to be able to witness here today, especially with the transparency and ensuring that the voices of all that participated this week was heard. So really appreciate you for that. Just for those who don't know me, my name is Craig Reed. I'm also an alum of A&M University, and I'm a proud member of the Marching 100, and also came up through Dr. Humphrey's era. I think what's most important for us from a university standpoint, as I reflect on what we've just had the opportunity to review from all the candidates, and would like to thank them for their participation and commitment and wanting to be a part of taking this university to the next level, is I think we have to first start with the facts. And the facts is we had a position description and requirement that called out the specific things that we thought were important and critical to this position to be able to allow us to take the university forward. And when you assess against that position description, clearly there are some that do not meet that criteria in a holistic perspective, and some that do meet a considerable amount of those criteria. When I created my rubric to understand against all the areas that I would look at, I work in procurement. I do a sourcing system. It's sort of like going out to market with a request for proposal, or request information, or being able to drive a strategic business decision. But you essentially set a criteria of metrics that state what are all the things that are important. And there isn't just one decision that allows you to drive down a path of what's important. You have to have some acumen in all those areas to drive a level of success. So there's been a lot of discussion today about the need for the university to be funded and making sure that we have a tight affiliation with the Board of Governors, the legislature, and others to ensure that we can get our fair share. My perspective on that is that that should happen regardless of the situation. We should not have a scenario that doesn't afford FAMU to get its fair share of the fund associated with the institution. And that's regardless of the candidate. I do feel that the candidate has to be able to advocate for the university and be able to ensure that they're part of the voice in the room and driving performance at the university in a way that allows us to be able to receive what we've earned as an institution. But I also feel that in order to be able to meet the requirements and objectives of the SUS state system, is that there has to be investment, and there needs to be equitable investment to ensure that all boats can rise at the same level. You know, when we take a look at the institutional funding, all of the SUS institutions, clearly some are funded more than others. That funding allows them to provide services that enables them to be able to achieve the expectations set by the performance-based funding models. You don't get the funds, it's hard for you to be able to have the resources to be able to truly support all aspects of that. But despite that, when you take a look at Florida A&M's performance, our current metrics today, where we stand as a university, what I would say is we're not broken. You walk across the campus, you see significant investment being made across the campus in terms of new housing and a whole host of other things that we've been doing as a board with the community, with the Board of Governors and with the legislature, investing dollars in a way to be able to uplift the university. I'd like to thank all those that have been a part of that process. For me, when I take a look at the criteria from a selection perspective and all the things that we have stated are important to the university, when I also take a look at what our constituents are saying, this would be the alumni, this would be the students, this will be the faculty, this will be the community. It's clear for me how we as an organization should look at the next president for Florida A&M University, and I'll be casting my vote in accordance with that requirement. Thank you all for your time. I want to thank you all for your support and really appreciate you being a part of this process to allow us to move the university forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reed. Are there any additional comments from trustees at this time? Okay, so I will make my comments at this time. I want to again thank you, fellow trustees, for this healthy dialogue and civil discourse and good governance. And thanks again to the Presidential Search Committee for getting us to this point, and Committee Chair Gibbons for leading the committee. Like each of you, I take my fiduciary duty very seriously. And this is a consequential decision that will shape the future of students and the success of those students, as well as the engagement level or lack thereof of faculty, staff, alumni, current and future donors, the Tallahassee community, the members of the industry cluster, and beyond. Yes, I am a proud two-time alumna of this illustrious institution. Yes, I was the third female SGA president, Student Government Association, for those who are watching and who may not be familiar with the language and nuances of FAMU. Yes, I'm a Humphreys era Rattler. Yes, I married a Rattler. Yes, our daughter is a graduate of this institution and is duly employed by a Fortune 100 company because of the education she got from this institution. But it's not just my personal history that shapes my service to this board. And you're right, Trustee White, this is a thankless job, but I do it for the love of FAMU, selflessly. And there are two factors that have always guided every decision I make, every deliberation, and that is student success and the perpetuity of FAMU. I'm a huge believer that what gets measured gets done. And I welcome the performance-based funding model. I embrace the accountability plan. I am extremely proud of the progress that this university has made with this board, as well as with predecessors who have preceded the roles in which we now sit. That in our 137-year history, we have reached historic highs as it relates to four-year graduation rates, in spite of. That we have achieved the highest score of an 83 this year since the performance-based funding model has been established. That is something to be extremely proud of. But we do have a ways to go. We do need to continue to advocate for student success that will ensure engagement across every important stakeholder group and the perpetuity of the institution that so many of us love and cherish at this College of Love and Charity. There's no leader without followers. And having spent the entire week on campus, having participated in the interviews, having participated in each and every community forum with community members and alumni, and having read through the summary of hundreds of stakeholder feedback, hundreds of inputs, having read up until maybe 1:30 a.m. this morning, every email, and I've responded to everyone that I could, and will respond to everyone if I have not yet. And if I've overlooked anyone, please forgive me. But I believe in the values of this institution: accountability, transparency, integrity, and inclusion. And your voice matters. And leaders can't lead if there's no one who is following. As Trustee Bryant mentioned, stakeholder groups across various constituencies have expressed deep concern and emotional sentiment around one of the four candidates. When Chair Lamb and I worked together to name the search committee, I wanted nothing more than a high integrity process that produced exceptional candidates. I'm a believer in God, and I believe in doing things in decency and in order. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I apologize to any finalist or semifinalist whose names were leaked due to a breach of confidentiality. What was circulated about one of the candidates, one of the finalists, prior to this week, in spite of that, I came into this week with an open mind, but I was left feeling empty. Many answers were hollow. Many statements were false. PharmD students don't require a dissertation to graduate from Florida A&M. And today, there are students from over 70 countries in our student body that are represented. That's not an aspiration, that's a fact for today. There was a lack of intellectual depth and a gap in cultural connection that was just painfully blatant. I also want to make a point about the range of compensation that this board approved today. In candidates' applications, they share their salary expectations. Candidates Allen and Hector, the range was between $400,000 and $500,000. Finalist Johnson, $750,000 base plus additional performance-based compensation and commensurate benefits. And finalist Palm, negotiable. As a fiduciary, I don't think it's financially responsible to select a finalist whose qualifications pale in comparison to others and whose salary requirements we cannot afford. I want to go on the record to reflect the hypocrisy. I also have to go on the record as a Black woman. In an age of merit-based hiring decisions, how can one justify settling for a candidate who does not meet all of the position criteria? or turning a blind eye to exceptionally qualified candidates. As our beloved Joe Bullard would say, the difference is clear. With that, my vote today will be for the candidate who I believe has the executive presence, the institutional knowledge, the love for FAMU, a deep and abiding desire and proven ability to engage authentically with every stakeholder group, because every stakeholder group matters. One who will not shrink from the pressure or the history, the challenges or the gaps that have gotten us to this point. Because there are so many things that still we need to course correct and we need to close the gap for so that this institution will remain in perpetuity. One shouldn't be penalized for the sins of their predecessors. And my vote will be in alignment with the will of students, the will of alumni, the will of most faculty and staff, the will of this community in Tallahassee and on the South Side, the will of over 13,000 people who have been very clear, and the will of each and every stakeholder who has engaged in the feedback that was shared earlier today. But most importantly, my decision comes after significant prayer and fasting for months. Ever since last summer, I was called for such a time as this. I will do the right thing for FAMU. There are no further comments at this time. Ms. Cummings Martin, would you please call the roll? We will ask each trustee to state the finalist who you cast your vote for.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustee Brown,
Marvin Johnson.
Trustee Bryant,
Dr. Donald Palm.
Trustee Crossman,
Marvin Johnson.
Trustee Figurs, Trustee Figurs, Trustee Jane Gainey,
Marvin Johnson.
Trustee Gibbons,
Marvin Johnson.
Trustee Harper,
Dr. Donald Palm.
Trustee Lawson,
Marvin Johnson.
Trustee Perry,
Dr. Donald Palm.
Trustee Reed,
Donald Palm.
Trustee Vasquez,
Johnson.
Trustee Washington,
Marvin Johnson.
and Trustee White.
Marvin Johnson.
Madam Chair, there are 8 votes for Attorney Johnson and 4 votes for Dr. Donald Palm.
Thank you. The motion passes. Marva Johnson has been selected as the final qualified candidate under the position criteria as president-elect for recommendation to the Board of Governors for confirmation. Congratulations, Ms. Johnson. May I have a motion to approve Marva Johnson as the 13th president-elect of Florida A&M University, contingent upon confirmation by the Board of Governors? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Who seconded it, please?
Gainey.
It's been properly moved by trustee Washington and seconded by trustee Gainey to approve Marva Johnson as the 13th president-elect of Florida A&M University, contingent upon confirmation by the Board of Governors. Is there any unreadiness to the motion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, please show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
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 Nay. Nay.
Ms. Cummings Martin, would you please take a roll call vote?
Yes, Madam Chair. Trustee Brown,
Yes.
trustee Bryant,
Nay.
trustee Crossman, trustee Crossman, trustee Figurs, trustee Figurs, trustee Gainey,
Yay.
trustee Gibbons,
Yes.
trustee Gibbons,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Nay.
trustee Lawson,
Yay. In favor.
trustee Perry,
Nay.
trustee Reed,
No. Not in favor.
trustee Vasquez,
Yes.
Madam Chair, 8 yeas. 4 nays. The motion passes.
Are you sure? I'm sorry. Are you sure it was 8 yays? I thought that trustee Crossman did not vote in this motion. Can you please recount?
You're right, 7.
Thank you. The motion carries. Is there any additional business to come before the board?
Yes, this is trustee White.
Trustee White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make a motion to have trustee Washington negotiate the contract with Marva Johnson to become president.
Second.
And with the goal of being able to have that contract done by June 16th.
Gainey, I'll second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded that trustee Washington have the delegated authority to negotiate the contract. And it's been moved by, seconded by trustee Gainey with the goal of having the contract complete by June 16th.
Yes.
Okay. May I offer a friendly amendment?
No, you may not.
Okay, well, I will take up Robert's rules because a friendly amendment is not required. So at this point, I will move that the date for the desired negotiation occur. Well, here's my question. The Board of Governors meeting at which this would be, at which the president-elect would be interviewed and confirmed happens on June, interestingly, it's close to Juneteenth. June 18th. Is June 16th enough time to complete that and to have the materials to the Board of Governors?
I would hope so. I will ask trustee Washington, do you think June 16th is sufficient enough or do you need more time?
June 18th is the date of the Board of Governors meeting, so.
And I assume they need pre-read just like we do.
They do, and I want to say that for the most recent approved president, there was probably 7 to 10 days, so maybe we move it back to June 9th or the week before.
Madam Chair,
Yes, trustee Perry, you're recognized.
in the past, if memory serves me correctly, the chair of the board in the past has always negotiated the contract with the candidate. What is the rationale from deviating from that practice at this time?
My rationale is that Trustee Washington has extensive experience with presidential searches. And I do believe with the process of this presidential search, that'll behoove us to move forward with Trustee Washington. I ask that the board take a vote. If it's not approved, then so be that. Let's take the will of the board.
Unfortunately, you may be right, but again, this does not feel well. You have a chair that was duly elected. Chairs in the past has always did this. Trustee and Chair Harper is a woman of integrity.
And I am.
And it strikes me strange that a motion was made as if someone had discussed this beforehand. But this is very typical of what's been going on. As Trustee White has said, let's vote on it, but we all know how it's going to turn out.
Thank you for those.
Thank you, Trustee Perry.
I want to go back to, I will address that in just a moment. Trustee White, would you like to modify? Instead of accepting my friendly amendment, would you like to?
Actually, I accept your friendly amendment. We don't need to put a date on it. All I'm asking for is that the responsibility goes to Trustee Washington.
Oh, Chair Washington.
Trustee Washington. Yes, ma'am.
This is so interesting, isn't it? This could be a Lifetime movie. And so your motion is to delegate the authority to Trustee Washington with no said date.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion. Okay. Trustee Reed, you're recognized.
Yes, Chair Harper. Can we get someone to confirm if that's possible, or is it in the policy already called out who has that accountability and responsibility to negotiate on behalf of the board? Because if it is already called out in our bylaws that that's your responsibility, only you can abdicate it. It can't be done via a vote by the board, from my understanding. So can we have someone confirm that that's possible?
Yes, I've asked our general counsel, Avery McKnight, to clarify.
Yes, Trustee Reed, pursuant to the BOG Regulation 1.002, it is clear that the Board of Trustees or its designee shall be responsible for drafting an employment contract. So it is well within the ambit of this board to decide if it wants to designate some person.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it certainly has been the practice of this board. And it's typical that, and I've hired lots of people, including a CEO. And so I am not unqualified. I am not unexperienced in negotiating. In fact, this board delegated last July to delegate the authority to the chair. It's not to Kristen Harper, it's to the chair. And the role that I've played is both trustee and chair. And I am a woman of faith, and I am a woman of integrity. And as chair, you elected me unanimously to represent the will of this body. And I have done so with decency and in order. The vote is the vote. And regardless of what my personal vote was as a trustee, I want the record to show that I will negotiate with anyone that this board has so deemed and has now voted upon. I take personal offense to what's happening.
Madam Chair,
Trustee Bryant, you're recognized.
it's to my knowledge that we have addressed all the business on our agenda for today. So with that said, I move to adjourn this meeting immediately.
I have a motion on the floor.
Hold on just a moment. There is a motion on the floor that we have to address. However, from a Robert's Rules perspective, what does Robert's Rules say around adjourning a meeting?
Madam Chair, I don't think we can adjourn with an open business item, whether we approve the item or not. I do think, and I defer to General Counsel, but I think we have
I've
to.
asked the General
address.
Counsel to provide feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Hold tight, please, for our
Okay.
experts
Will
that we've
do.
hired to provide feedback, that the
And-
president has hired, excuse me.
And
The only person we hire is the president.
I would also like them to address whether or not we have a specific agenda for a special meeting. And whether or not we can cover this particular subject at this particular time. But he addressed all of that at the proper time, so we can move on.
I do believe that let me get to that in just a moment. General Counsel McKnight, what does Robert's Rules say as it relates to a proposal to adjourn a meeting?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A motion to adjourn does not supersede a motion for action on the main question, and that's where we are right now.
Okay, so we will proceed with taking up this motion that is on the floor. And if there is no additional business before the board, we will adjourn. If not, we can take up your motion, Trustee Bryant. Is there any additional discussion on the motion? Trustee Brown, I see your hand. You are recognized.
I call the question.
I'm sorry?
I call for the question to end the
Call
discussion.
for the question
to vote.
requires a vote. All right, can you tell me what I believe it's 2/3, but can you please confirm? Calling the question does require a vote.
If there's no one else that has comments, then we don't need to call the question.
No, you've done it, so I'm gonna follow through. Go ahead.
It does require a 2/3 vote.
Thank you. Ms. Cummings Martin, would you please call the roll to call the question so that we can move to the vote?
Madam Chair, Trustee Brown,
Yes, in favor.
Trustee Bryant,
Nay.
Trustee Crossman, Trustee Crossman, Trustee Figurs, Trustee Figurs, Trustee Gainey,
Yay.
pardon me,
Yes.
Trustee Gibbons,
Yes.
Trustee Harper,
Yes, I agree to call for the question.
Trustee Lawson,
Yes, I agree to call for the question.
Trustee Perry,
Yes.
Trustee Reed,
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, Trustee Vasquez, Trustee Washington,
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Nine yeas, one nay.
Okay, Excuse me, just need to confer with General Counsel for one moment. I'll be right back.
As requested by the chair, I'll read this. In parliamentary procedure, a motion to adjourn does not supersede a motion for action on the main question, meaning it does not prevent the main question from being voted on. Instead, a motion to adjourn can be brought up when the main question is not yet fully debated or before a vote is taken. If the motion to adjourn passes, the meeting is adjourned and the main question is not voted on.
Thank you. So what I understand now that was not fully explained before is that a motion to adjourn can be brought up when the main question is not yet fully debated or before a vote is taken. So what came before the body was a call for the question. And prior to that, the debate was still occurring. So from my perspective, had I known this information prior to this full body of information and not just a single sentence, the adjournment motion could have been taken up at that time because the main motion had not yet been voted on and the debate had not fully ended. I wanted to make sure the body had that full information.
Can I call for orders of the day, please?
Can you repeat yourself?
Can I call for orders of the day? Only if there's not a new action being taken. But where does that leave us right now? Since I called for the adjournment and then we did the vote. So where are we?
Where we are right now in this process is that there is a motion on the floor from Trustee White and seconded by Trustee Gainey that Trustee Washington be delegated the authority to negotiate the contract with the president-elect. A debate was started and perhaps not concluded. There was a call for the question that took up a, 8-4 vote?
Mhm.
And so now you're calling for orders of the day. And orders of the day directs the body back to the agenda that was published. And I do believe that your motion to adjourn came before there was a call for the question. And so with this full body of information, as chair, I believe that we need to move forward with the motion to adjourn. What is can you confirm, Robert,
Madam Chair.
as it relates to the vote required to adjourn?
Madam Chair.
In just a moment. I'll recognize you in just a moment.
Madam Chair, if that vote was taken up, it would be by a majority.
And can you clarify while you're at the podium? Can you give us some context around orders of the day? Because generally action items are published on the agenda.
What will make us to follow the agenda along with what has been presented, which gets us back to determining who is going to be designated as a person to negotiate the contract with the president-elect. And that is consistent with the BOG regulation.
As it relates to orders of the day, can you remind us how that weighs in and when that is intended to take place?
That would take place now, so that we will follow the agenda. And what is there is this action item with regards to the president-elect, which, consistent with the BOG regulation, would require for someone, the board or a designee, to negotiate that contract.
Okay, so the motion to adjourn requires a majority. At this time, we will, Trustee Lawson, you had a question or comment.
I think you're trying to get there, and so is Attorney Ming. I just want to make sure that we are within our own board regulation, because my simple understanding is with an open motion on the floor, arguably the debate didn't conclude, but that motion needs to be voted on prior to concluding the meeting because it is on the floor and has been properly seconded. Now, not being an attorney, I am looking for general counsel to provide it maybe in layman's terms so that I can understand what's our appropriate next step.
And I would also ask General Counsel McKnight that you maybe state in layman's terms the information you shared with us around a motion to adjourn and the superiority that takes around other motions given certain contexts.
Well, if it is the posture that the debate had started but had not completed, then the order of taking up the motion to adjourn would take precedence over the main motion. And that, to be voted upon, that motion would be determined by a majority of the sitting trustees right now who are present.
Thank you. So we will move forward at this time with I
have an additional question for
Trustee
General Counsel.
Washington, you're
Thank you.
recognized.
Attorney McKnight, you had mentioned something about the delegation of the contract needing to happen within the agenda. Is that it? Maybe I misunderstood you. Could you clarify if that is a part of the agenda item or if that is a separate agenda item that we would need to take up if we don't take up today at a future date?
It was my understanding that what was on the agenda would also include, as it was phrased, it's not there specifically, but that it would include designating someone to serve as the person to negotiate the contract with the president-elect.
Thank you.
So at this time, we will take up the motion that has superseded the main motion on the floor, and that motion is adjournment, which requires a majority vote. Ms. Cummings Martin, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Trustee Brown,
No.
Trustee Bryant,
Yay.
Trustee Crossman, Trustee Figurs, Trustee Gainey,
No.
Trustee Gibbons.
No.
Trustee Harper,
Yes.
Trustee Lawson,
No.
Trustee Perry, Trustee Reed,
No.
Trustee Vasquez, Trustee Vasquez, Trustee Washington,
No.
Trustee White.
No.
Eight noes, 2 yeas. The motion passes.
Would you kindly recount?
I'll go back through. Trustee Brown, no. Trustee Bryant, yes. No vote for Trustee Crossman or Figurs. Trustee Gainey, no. Trustee Gibbons, no. Trustee Harper, yes. Trustee Lawson, no. Trustee Perry, no. Trustee Reed, no. No vote for trustee Vasquez. Trustee Washington, no. Trustee White, no.
Thank you. Eight noes, 2 yeses. The
Yes.
motion to adjourn fails. So the main motion is back on the floor, and that is to delegate the authority to trustee Washington to negotiate the contract with the president-elect. Is there any additional unreadiness before we take up the vote?
Is there opportunity for comment?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm confused. I thought we called the question. Can we get clarification from general counsel on that, please?
The motion to adjourn was stated prior to you calling the question. And we just took a vote on the motion to adjourn. So if you want to restate calling the question,
I think where I'm confused is that where the question was called and that the vote went through for the calling of the question, where does that motion lie for the question to be called? Was the motion also invalidated once there was a superseding motion?
yes.
Trustee Perry, you're recognized.
I find it terribly strange, again, that we want to silence debate and opinion. I find it strange that historically at FAMU, that the chair of the board has always, since I've been here, negotiated the contract with the president. It is quite apparent that that's not going to happen. It's quite apparent that I guess lightning struck and happened to hit here at FAMU, where we have the chair who traditionally serves in that role, a woman of integrity, a woman that has demonstrated that she understands her fiduciary duties, which adds to the odious odor of what's going on in this body. So let's go ahead and vote, but I just find it horrible that in an institution that talks about love and charity, that there's no love, there's no charity. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cummings Martin, would you please call the roll?
Madam Chair,
Can you please restate the motion?
The motion is to delegate the authority to negotiate the contract with the president-elect to trustee Washington. Ms. Cummings Martin, would you please call the roll?
Madam Chair, Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Bryant,
Nay.
Trustee Crossman, Trustee Crossman, Trustee Figurs, Trustee Gainey,
Yay.
Trustee Gibbons,
Yeah.
Trustee Harper,
Nay.
Trustee Lawson,
Yeah.
Trustee Perry,
No.
Trustee Reed, Trustee Reed,
No.
thank you. Trustee Vasquez, Trustee Vasquez, Trustee Washington,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Yes.
6 yeas and 4 nays. Madam Chair.
Thank you. The motion carries. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.